Welcome everyone. This is the third and final webinar in our three-part series on Get Ready for School. We would like to thank our partners who have all contributed to this work. Kim Rhino-Briscoe and Kelly Crocker at the Department of Education, Erin Jolly at NSECDIS, Jill Cormier at Autism Nova Scotia, and Hilary Wallace at Hearing and Speech Centers Nova Scotia.
Hi, so this is session 3, Building Bridges and Creating Connections. Create and foster a good working relationship with your child's school team. My name's Katie Carroll, and I am an autism educator with the Provincial Preschool Autism Service. And I'm here today with my colleague, Catherine Garside.
Hi, I'm also an autism educator with the Provincial Preschool Autism Service. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, who have been living and working here for over 13,000 years. Today, as we share about the transition to school, it's important to remember not only the rich cultures and histories of Indigenous peoples, but also some of the difficult parts of our shared history. Many Indigenous children were taken away from their families and placed in residential schools. These schools caused great harm and pain to Indigenous communities, trauma that is still being faced today. It is also important for us to acknowledge that this history, as we strive for a better future, we commit to working together with Indigenous communities and leaders to co-create a path forward focused on reflection, understanding, awareness, reconciliation, and action that honors the knowledge and wisdom and strengths of Indigenous peoples and recognizes the historic and present-day harms and trauma experienced by Indigenous peoples. We are all treaty people who benefit greatly from the shared resources of this land, covered by the treaties of peace and friendship. We also want to acknowledge that we live and work in different communities throughout the province that African Nova Scotians have resided on since their ancestors arrived here over 300 years ago. We value the contributions African Nova Scotians have made to our culture, infrastructure, industries throughout the history of Nova Scotia.
So just before we begin, we just want to have a small note about language. Canadians on the autism spectrum have diverse opinions on language and how they wish to be referenced. Many prefer identity first language, so autistic, while others would rather use person first, person with autism. This is an ongoing discussion in the autistic community. To be respectful of everyone's unique preferences, references to autism are used interchangeably throughout.
So if you're listening to this webinar today, you may have a preschool-age child with autism who will be going to school in the fall. Not all families who are joining in and listening to this talk will be receiving services from Provincial Preschool Autism Services. Some families may have participated in EIVI or the intensive service. Some may have been seeing a speech and language pathologist from Hearing and Speech Nova Scotia, and others may have had their child at home with them, and this will be their first very new learning opportunity outside of the home. So wherever you're at, wherever your child's at, we're hoping to provide some general information on what the start to school could look like for your child. We are not able to get into any specific child strategies or support for your child. We recognize that although everyone lives in Nova Scotia, your child's school experience will be unique and can vary based on your geography. Finally, every child has their own strengths, challenges, interests, and building on your child's abilities and interests will help increase their confidence in their school experience.
So we have a few topics that we plan to cover today, and I'll just take a quick run through those now quickly. So we'll look at initial steps, so how you can prepare for the school year before it starts, building relationships, positive communication, supporting your child, and staying engaged.
So when we think about building relationships, it's helpful to think about what are some of the initial steps before the school year. So it's important to make introductions and to gather information. That could be reaching out to the school administration, whether that's the principal or the vice principal, to have a conversation or plan a meeting and chat about your child regarding their strengths, their interests, and their challenges.
One thing you can do to prepare for the school year is to get familiar with the school itself. That could be visiting the school playground over the summer, asking the school about ways to familiarize yourself with the school. So, example, using a social story, video modeling, orientation, that sort of thing. It may also be helpful for your child to practice school arrival and departure. So that could be during a quieter time at the school. So you could do a walk to school to explain how it will be on the first day of school. It may also be helpful to practice school routines at home. You could even play school teacher or even support your child to practice skills that would help them be more independent, such as opening a lunch bag for a snack or using their water bottle. Yeah, so we talked about gathering information. It is also important in our initial preparation to share information. One of the ways to do this is via the school transition meeting. And some of you may have already had your school transition meeting, but some have it closer to the start of the school year. Another way is to provide the school with a detailed profile about your child, their strengths, their challenges, preferences, and any of those strategies that have worked well for them in the past or still working really well for them now. Another way to share information is just sharing any relevant assessments they've had. And this was a note from one of our colleagues, Kim from Department of Education, but when registering for primary, it's really important to note any diagnosis or needs that your child may have when you're filling out that online application.
There is an initial meeting prior to school where you can gather and share information on your child with the school team, all to prepare for the school transition, as Katie just mentioned. But as this title of this webinar is called Building Bridges and Creating Connections, there is more than just the transition to school as the fall months pass by. You may be wondering, why is it so important to create and foster a good working relationship with your school team for your child? We'd like to walk through a few of those reasons now.
So having open communication and collaboration between the school and family supports your child's growth for fulfilling school experience. Collaborative relationships will support your ability to share valuable insights about your child's strengths, their challenges, their progress, and interest. It will also support problem solving. We know that challenges and obstacles are a natural part of a child's educational journey. A good working relationship fosters a collaborative approach to problem solving, will make it easier to develop effective solutions and support strategies for your child.
Collaboration between parents and schools is especially important. This partnership helps ensure that your child receives consistent support tailored to their unique needs. By fostering a strong partnership, parents and schools can create a supportive and nurturing environment that addresses the holistic needs of a child with autism, promoting their academic, social, and emotional development.
So we know building relationships is very important, but what are some ways we can do this? One is through regular check-ins. You can schedule regular meetings or check-ins with teachers. You can attend parent-teacher conferences and other school events. Another way is to stay informed. The school will have lots of communication. They may have newsletters or events. So just being on top of things and staying informed is really important. Being proactive is also really important in terms of supporting that relationship. You can initiate contact. You don't have to wait for the school to reach out to you. You can proactively communicate about your child's needs. Let them know if something's happening for your child, both good and bad. Address concerns or issues early before they escalate or become more of a challenge. You can share updated information about your child. So again, not waiting for a scheduled meeting, but just shooting them a note to say, this has changed. This is really important for you to know about. And finally, just following up. After meetings or discussions, you can follow up with an email summarizing what was discussed and any agreed upon actions.
Here are a few more ways that you can build on your relationship with the school team. You can create a team approach by including all relevant teaching staff in your communications. Consider who are the important people engaged with your child, who needs to be at meetings to discuss progress and concerns. You can build on your relationship with the school team by collaborating on your child's goals. Being involved in joint goal setting, work with the school team, and to set realistic and achievable goals for your child, ensuring everybody is on the same page. This will also ensure the school team is working with you on goals that are meaningful to your child and family. With all caregivers and educators at home and school working in line with each other, your child is more likely to meet goals effectively and timely. We also encourage you to monitor your child's progress by regularly reviewing and discussing progress towards your goals with the school team. You can build a stronger relationship with your child's school team by being respectful and understanding. It's important to understand that teachers and other school personnel have multiple responsibilities and challenges. It's helpful to approach conversations with empathy and respect. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be curious.
Communication is the foundation of our relationship with schools and school teams. Knowing this, it's really important that you feel comfortable to highlight your own communication needs to the school as well. You feeling confident and comfortable in your communication is really important. So, for example, if English is your second language, you can inquire about interpretive services or other ways that might support your communication. A few notes about effective communication. We know that it enhances relationships. Strong communication will help to build stronger connections and foster trust. Effective communication supports understanding. It helps to ensure everyone is on the same page and understands each other's point of view and perspective. And finally, effective communication supports consistency. Frequent and regular communication ensures the consistency and support and guidance of your child.
So we understand the importance of communication. How can we help improve our communication skills?
When we think about communication with the school team, there are some things that you can do right away that are really simple. There's a simple first step. One is just making sure that your contact information is updated. So if you've moved or you've had a change in phone numbers or address, just make sure the school has the best way to reach you. Be prepared. Organize your information. Prepare topics, questions ahead of time so that when you do have an opportunity to speak to the teacher or the school team, that you have everything available that you want covered. Here's a little note from Kim Rhino Briscoe, who is our colleague from Department of Education. You know, she talks about the importance of establishing that open communication and just said schools are happy to learn from families about your child. We recognize that you know your child the best. Advocating for your child is sharing about your child's strengths, interests, and challenges. Think of things that may help at school. So, for example, what tools does your child use to make needs and wants known at home? Do they have favorite games, play toys, or activities that they like? What helps when they are upset? Thanks, Kim, for sharing that.
You're probably wondering, will I receive updates from the school about my child? And so it's helpful to determine who the point of contact is for your child at your school. For some families and some children, that might be the grade primary teacher, that may be the learning center teacher, there might be a principal. It can be different depending on your child and your school. So finding out who that person is a nice way to make sure that you're getting good communication from the school. Also finding out about preferred method of communication from the school and the teachers. So determining what method you're going to use to get communications back and forth from them, whether there's a written log that goes in a book in your child's backpack back and forth from school to home. It might be texting or emailing. Some classrooms also have these apps today where there's information and pictures or updates shared through an app that you can download on your phone. And depending on the needs of your child, you might also want to have phone numbers for your contact and a log going back and forth. It just depends on your child and the school team and what suits both of you. So we encourage you to have a conversation with the school team and figure out what that's going to look like. And of course, the school will be providing very general communication that's more school-wide or classroom-wide, but then you really want to figure out for your child specifically, what will that communication look like?
So things to consider. How often do I want to receive information? Is this something that's doable for my school team? What is a compromise that meets my needs, but is also reasonable for the school? So open communication will really support you to come together with your school team and come up with a solution that works for both you and the team in terms of what's a reasonable amount of time and communication.
So in terms of making our communication positive, here are some tips for positive communication. It's important to be respectful and open. Approach discussions with a positive and collaborative mindset. It's important to actively listen and be open to feedback and suggestions from the person you're speaking with. Come to the conversation with the goal of understanding the other person's point of view. Feel comfortable to provide constructive feedback. So if there is an issue that arises, discuss it respectfully and constructively, and then focus on finding a solution together rather than placing blame on each other or things like that. Feel comfortable to suggest ideas and alternatives, potential solutions. You know your child best, and you are a valuable voice in their education and decision making when there might be an issue that needs a resolution. Don't forget to express gratitude when something is working well or if you're seeing progress. Teachers love to know that those things mean something to you. We encourage you to be curious and understand why decisions are made so that you have an understanding if it's being approached in a way that you wouldn't have necessarily gone with. Finally, make time for communication and don't be afraid to follow up if you haven't heard back. A lot of educators are very busy and there's a lot of children, and your child is important. So it's important to follow up if you haven't heard anything back about something that you were wondering about.
So how can you further support your child? Probably have heard about advocacy, but what do we mean by this? Advocacy is supporting and speaking up for your child to ensure their needs are recognized and met. As a parent or a caregiver, it is important that your perspective is heard, respected, and taken into account.
Advocacy is important to maximize your child's success or their education. Most importantly, to share your point of views and concerns on behalf of your child. Your views and concerns are not always obvious. For example, the school team may not know that you're unhappy with your child's progress. If you don't mention it, they are unlikely to be aware.
Advocacy can take many different forms. It could be sending a video of a helpful idea. It can be positive specific feedback to a teacher, if you're happy with something they're doing with your child. Advocacy does not have to be aggressive. You can still be firm and clear, but collaborative and effective.
You may be wondering, what about my child? Your child can be taught to advocate for themselves as well. It will look different depending on your child and their age, their abilities, but teaching your child self-advocacy is important as well. A great way to do that is by teaching them choice making. So being able to select from a variety of activities, whether that's indicating by pointing or verbally or finding things to do on their own. But making choice is a really great skill to work on with your child to build their advocacy skills. Also, to teach them some assertive language. Being able to say no thanks is really important, or being able to ask for some help and advocate for themselves verbally or with some other like AAC, whether that's a picture exchange or speech generating device. Teaching your child some skills to communicate their wants and needs will really help in them having their own voice and advocating for themselves.
So, what are other ways to support your child? One way is to reinforce learning at home. You can support your child's skills at home through practice and repetition. giving them positive, specific feedback when they do things well, and when they do things you want to see more of. You can also encourage their independence. Continue to come up with skills that your child needs to work on that will help increase their independence throughout their daily routines and their school routines. You can work collaboratively with the school on building these skills. Another way to support your child is to get to know other families. It may be helpful to chat with other families from time to time to learn about how they are teaming with the school staff or what supports they're using. It may be helpful for your child to build relationships with other children in their school outside of class time.
We've mentioned a few ideas for how you can stay engaged with your child's school team. You may have other ideas on how to stay engaged. Communicate and build relationships with your child's school team throughout the year. And there might be some nice conversation starters or questions that you're thinking of. And Katie has a few nice examples for other ideas that you may not have thought of to start the conversation.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways you can approach this, but things like, can you tell me something that is going well for my child? Is my child building relationships with their peers? What is something my child found hard today? What skills can I build on at home? What is an activity my child is enjoying? What makes my child smile during the day? These are my child's favorite things right now. Did you know that?
Staying engaged. Remember, your experience will vary from teacher to teacher and from year to year as your child moves through their education experience. Your experience will look different too over those years. Build a strong relationship based on open communication that works for you and the school and that will help you to stay engaged.
Finally, in closing, we'd just like to say building a good relationship with your child's school team requires ongoing effort, communication, and collaboration. By being actively involved and supportive, you can create a positive environment that enhances your child's educational experience.
If you have a few moments, there is a QR code that's there on the screen. You could hold up your photo app of your phone to it, and it will bring you to a website that just has some questions that we would love to hear back from people who have listened to this webinar. Our goal is to make them better, more meaningful for families who are sending their children off to school. So if you have a few moments to let us know what you thought of our webinar today, how we could make it better for next time, we would love for that feedback to come through. So thank you very much for listening and best of luck.
Thank you. Take care.